Star Wars video games have ranged from sensational highs to dramatic lows throughout the years. Classics like KOTOR has everyone waiting on a remake for some modern shining. The Force Unleashed made everyone feel the full power of the dark side. While Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order showed EA that single players are more alive than ever. And Pandemic's Battlefront 2 is renowned as one of the best multiplayer shooters of its era. So there was no pressure, right, when EA decided they wanted to reboot the Battlefront franchise. EA's Battlefront 2 launched back in 2017, and it was the follow-up to Battlefront 2015, which had plenty of highs, but also didn't quite land in the way many wanted it to, focusing solely on the original trilogy of Star Wars. Battlefront 2 was there to rectify that, spanning across all three eras, the prequels, the originals, and the sequels, whether you love them or you hate them. Today, I'm going to talk about why, despite not being perfect, I love Battlefront 2, and it should be looked at as a brilliant Star Wars game that captures all things that I love about Star Wars. Now look, first things first, we can't talk Battlefront 2 without talking about the loot box shenanigans that launched with the game, leading to one of, if not the most downvoted comment in gaming on Reddit, when they said they wanted the player to feel pride and accomplishment as a result of grinding tens of hours just to be able to unlock and play as Darth Vader. Oof. Alongside a loot box system that was so bad that it is the prime example of how not to do microtransactions in modern video games, putting microtransactions on the big telly across all of gaming for everyone to see. But with that acknowledged, I'm here to talk about the state the game is in 2023. So let's dive into that. Star Wars Battlefront 2 contains a single-player story campaign, PvP multiplayer, online co-op against AI, and single-player modes against AI. So, let's begin with the story. Now, in the lead up to the game, it was marketed as a story focused on the Empire's perspective of the events of Episode 6 and leading us up until Episode 7, where we play as Iden Versio, commander of Special Forces Inferno Squadron, which, for me, was a really cool concept for a single-player game. And it's rare in the Star Wars universe to see things told from the dark side perspective. So naturally, that's why many of us were left underwhelmed when the game hit and they pulled the old switcheroo on us and had us switching allegiances 3 missions in. But when you look past that, the single player still manages to capture what we love about Star Wars. The bombastic set pieces, whether you admit it or not, the fan service that we all truly love with our favourite heroes and villains, brilliant music and themes, and the weird-ass aliens that you would never have imagined. The missions playing as the heroes were decent enough, but aside from that Luke Skywalker one, that was just a West mission. The campaign isn't overly lengthy, and it just about finds the right length. I'd argue the campaign is probably the weakest offering that Battlefront 2, but by no means a bad one. Filling in a few gaps between episodes 6 and 7, it's serviceable enough and a good enough time to warrant a playthrough, even with that predictable twist. Now, let's get to the real meat on the bone, the multiplayer offerings. For me, the secret ingredient is the variety that Battlefront 2 offers us. You feeling a little bit more competitive? You can offer some PvP. You want to kick back and relax and slaughter hundreds of battle droids while feeling unstoppable? There's some co-op with friends or family or matchmake if you want to. Even just play against the AI on their own. One of the main criticisms levelled at EA's first attempt at Battlefront was the fact that it was focused entirely on the OG trilogy. Look, here we've got 20 different locations in Star Wars Battlefront 2, with fan favourites like Kamino and Bespin, to newer planets to the canon like Crate from The Last Jedi. All of these locations and set pieces in them that you had to imagine before, filled with details and references that would made you think you've seen them in the movies but never actually were there. DICE went above and beyond here. Playing across all 3 of the Star Wars eras was much to the delight of everybody. The locations all look stunning. Made in EA's Frostbite engine, the game stacks up just as well as pretty much all multiplayer shooters visuals today. Colourful vistas with environments that feel alive, and creatures roaming around. Or being in the interior of a Republic cruiser that looks and sounds authentic to Star Wars with its metallic and shiny surfaces, and all those alarms going off around you. It captures that feeling of being in the Star Wars universe that we all want so badly. Particularly the maps that got added later, in the realm of Felucia and Scarif, DICE really seemed to pull out all the stops to recreate the essence of these places, as they got more and more confident with the engine and reintegrating that with Star Wars. Out of all the offerings in Star Wars Battlefront 2, my personal favourite is the PvE aspect. the online co-op, or couch co-op if you want to prefer to play that way. Putting you in an objective-based mode to capture one objective before you proceed to the next area. You have to either A, attack the objective and capture it within the time limit, or B, defend it. In modern games these days, most people put out a half-assed PvE horde mode or something of the equivalent, just to tick a box to say, we have this. For me, that's what's great about Battlefront 2. There's a challenge to the co-op. If you don't work well together and cover the bases of the objectives as a team, you're going to lose, and the same applies to the attacking. This is where the real magic of Battlefront comes from. Being an Ovisian gunner advancing behind Rey while she blocks and I shoot, creating your own moments of Star Wars magic. Stuff you'd only experience in the movies or more recently the shows. Taking down Dooku while you play as Obi-Wan and your friend is Anakin, like a scene out of Filoni's Clone Wars. Spamming the hello there emote after you finished him off. It's these moments that keep the replayability of the game. Moments where you're the last man standing to defend the objective, as Han Solo, while stormtroopers come bearing down on you with John Williams' incredible score in the background, against the Empire, and it's thrilling, it's pure Star Wars. The situations vary and change from game to game, moment to moment. Co-op is accessible to players of all skill. For me, a huge theme of Star Wars is family. My dad, who isn't exactly a finger on the trigger kind of player, feels at home with Battlefront 2's co-op. And whilst I have a hard time getting him up to grips with other co-op games, here he can crush some Rebellion scum. Whilst co-op is my particular favourite, and listen, whilst I'm here, can we have some more online and local co-op Star Wars games? We are starving out here. There's a real lack. Anyway, I love the PvP because it has so much variety in its offerings. Battlefront 2 has 8 distinct PvP modes, all with unique offerings. Want to stick Duel of Fates on while you fight as Maul against Kenobi on Naboo, recreating that scene in Heroes vs Villains? Go for it. You want to get all nostalgic, just like old times, Rex? Play EA's version of Galactic Conquest, known as Supremacy. Want to play against the most terrifying thing in all existence, the Ewoks, in a more horror-based extraction mode on a cold, dark Endor night? Do it. Not to mention, Battlefront 2 also has extremely good space combat in Starfighter Assault, and even variety within that. Not just across all 3 eras, not just space, but in the planets too. And not just one mode, you can battle it out of all your favourite heroes and villain ships. Ones that maybe you have never seen before. We all know Maul has the coolest ship though, right? I mean, that thing is dope. There's different offerings for each kind of player. 8 modes, 20 main locations, and even so many sub-locations within that, giving you hours and hours of replayability within itself. There's just so much on offer here, that there really is something for every Star Wars fan. Now, we won't be talking Star Wars without the memes, the references, the fan service, and the sand. This is where Battlefront 2 began so weak and ended so strong, because it has references from all corners of the galaxy. Outfits you might have seen for a maximum of 2 minutes in a TV show appear here. You can play as Count Dooku in his pyjamas, and if that isn't the pinnacle of Star Wars video games, I don't know what is. From battle-damaged Grievous to a more realistic take on Kenobi's Clone Wars armour, you'll find a lot to love here. There's even costumes that I haven't unlocked yet despite hundreds of hours of playtime, like Maul's cosmetics from Star Wars Rebels, the old Master skin. Cosmetics inspired from Solo, Rise of Skywalker, that just add to the richness of the game and to your own personal taste and your favourite characters. When I say Battlefront 2 looks and sounds authentic to Star Wars, I don't just mean the locations and the sound design. I mean the wackiness that everyone actually loves about Star Wars. Letting you spam Anakin's hatred of sand emote whilst battling on Geonosis, DICE understood that Star Wars isn't all serious, it's about fun too. There's the common saying in video games, it really makes you feel like Batman from the Arkham games. You really feel like Spider-Man swinging around Insomniac's New York City. And yet still, DICE managed to capture the feel of the Star Wars universe. Yes, EA Motive went on to further encapsulate and specialise in the dogfighting aspects in what I think is the underrated Star Wars Squadrons. And Respawn nailed what it is to be a Jedi in Fallen Order and the soon-to-be Jedi Survivor. But DICE still captured the Star Wars magic here. The audio design from the iconic E11 blaster, with the zoom of each lightsaber, to renditions of John Williams' best themes that we all know and love. It's not just battlefield weapons given a Star Wars skin, and even within each class there are different feels to each gun. Now let's talk about those classes. I've always been an assault boy. The thermal detonator was the meta for a long time. I just loved charging in with the shotgun and using the health star cards. It had that risk reward that I was really into. But there's a ton of variety here. From the bulk of the heavy class to your officers playing support. It recognises and rewards squad and team based gameplay, and all of them play slightly different from the weapons available to the abilities on the star card. And even with that being said, even a full squad of assault players can all have distinct abilities from one another. I've spoke about the heroes and villains, but let's give some love to the other reinforcements. Star Wars The Clone Wars was the Star Wars show growing up for me, and Republic Commando was one of my favourite games whilst I grew up. So to see Clone Commandos represented here and come to the game with variety of cosmetics was huge for me, even if it wasn't Delta Squad showing up themselves. This spans across all the Star Wars eras though. Some Sith Troopers from the Rise of Skywalker, Ewoks, Death Troopers, Commando Droids, ARC Troopers, Wookiees, Super Battle Droids, I could go on and on and on, all bridging the gap between your average Joe soldier and the big boy heroes and villains, and it celebrates all aspects of Star Wars. There's so much variety in combat here that it makes it such a fun experience to play, not just on your own, but with other people as well. When Star Wars Battlefront 2 was first revealed, the hype was insane. With an initial trailer, the potential was there. And despite its sour launch, I still love Battlefront 2, as I dip in fairly regularly, and I'll continue to do so. Its diverse locations, tight gameplay, abundance of choice, dope cosmetics, and power fantasy of heroes are big reasons why I still do play. But most importantly, Battlefront 2, in its finished state in 2023, is most of all a celebration of Star Wars, all parts of it. The good, the bad, the weird, and the wonderful. There's still a community here. I never struggle to find a game, no matter the game mode or time I play. The potential for it maybe in my eyes was never quite fully reached with EA pulling the plug in my eyes, but was a little too soon to focus on Battlefield 2042. This game had untapped potential. The Mandalorian, Season 7 of Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Respawn Jedi series, just to name a few, all adding to the universe that, with content that Battlefront could have drawn on and even had seasons on. It leaves me optimistic of a new Battlefront one day, but even if that day never comes, I'm still satisfied that I'll always have this experience of Star Wars that I'll always want to come back to, and that will always be a pleasure to play. If you enjoyed this video even half as much as I enjoyed making it, then please do the magic hand thing and leave a like on the video. And if you're looking for more Star Wars content and gaming, you're exactly where you need to be. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. This is the way.